Hello children, in this session we will be doing the ninth lesson in geography, which is tourism, transport and communication. Now children, in this lesson we will be learning about the tourist places, the different destinations that are famous and very well known in both the countries, that is India and Brazil. We will also see about the transport routes, that is the waterways, airways, railways, and lastly we'll see communication. Okay, how has technology developed and how is it doing well in both the countries through internet, telephones, mobile phones, satellites. So let's get started with the lesson. So first we will see the tourism in Brazil. Look at the beautiful destination that Brazil has to offer in their tourism. So there is clean white sand beaches, there is attractive sea coast, beautiful islands, orchards, deep dense forests of Amazon. Then they also have various birds, as they are also known for the diverse animals and birds. So they have various animals and birds which can be spotted by international tourists. The new capital in Brazil, which is Brasilia, is also a very attractive tourist place. Then there is cities like Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo, which are large cities which attract a lot of tourists. Now children, tourism is an important economic activity as it brings in a lot of money. It helps in getting jobs for the local people. So in several regions in the country there is a lot of tourism which helps in the economic activity. So now looking at the sensitivity of the natural resources which are there in Brazil, ecotourism is also developing. They are trying to develop ecotourism as they have so much of nature surrounded around them, like the forest, the pantanal, the grasslands, so many things. So they can really work hard and develop ecotourism in their country. Now let's see tourism in India. Now children, if we look at this graph, okay, which is showing us the number of international tourists, and the other one is a graph, okay, which is showing us tourism and economy. Okay, so if we look at this 9.1 figure, that is the graph showing the number of international tourists. The number of international tourists visiting India in 2015 is more than that of Brazil. Even though this is true, the share of tourism sector in the GDP is less than that of Brazil. So apart from this, the proportion of Indian population which is engaged in tourism proportion is way higher than Brazil. So this is primarily dependent on the size of the population of both these countries and the size of GDP. So according to this, the population of India is more than Brazil, and so its GDP is. So as the GDP of India is higher than Brazil, so also its population. Therefore, the contribution of tourism to GDP appears less than Brazil, and the population which is engaged seems much more higher because there is more population. Now children, it is seen that the number of international tourists in India is increasing constantly, it's growing. But this increase appears to be more in 2010. This increase in the number of international tourists is consistent, okay, it is continuous, it is not dropping down. There are foreign tourists which visit India for various reasons like heritage, adventure, culture, health, and business tourism. Even in India, there is ecotourism which is being given a boost because India is a diverse country with so many forests and natural beauties. Now, considering the heritage of India and the history of India, there are plenty of opportunities for tourism in many parts of the country. Many places are being developed for this very reason. Now let us see transport in Brazil. In front of you, there is a map which is showing us the major transport routes of Brazil. The most common method of transportation is roadways, which is very common in all the countries. Roadways, which accounts for more than half of the transportation system in Brazil. But the density of roads which is there, the network, is concentrated in the eastern part of the country. If you look at the map, its density is mostly towards the eastern part. The forested land. So why there is less roads that are built in the north? So it is basically because of the forests, the Amazon river basin, the swampy lands, which has which is acting as an obstacle for especially the development of roadways in this part. Waterways have been developed on a commercial basis, means mostly for import export, on the Amazon river. Boats ply from Iquitos in Peru to the mouth of river. The longest waterways in the world can be navigated through these waterways. Another river important for waterways is the south flowing river, which is the Parana river. The coastal shipping is also carried out in the coastal areas. Now, railways have not that developed in Brazil due to its geographical location. The use of trains for long distance transportation of passengers is restricted to only a few urban tourist routes, though it is cheaper. The contribution of airways is also very less. Okay, so that is why they need to work hard in their transportation routes, and it is little bit tougher for them because of the way the geographical land they are having. Next, we'll see the transport in India. So as compared to Brazil, you all can see two maps here, two maps which is showing us. The first one is telling us about the national highways and the major ports. The second one is showing us the important railway routes and airports. So if we compare to Brazil, India has a denser network of transport because Indian topography is much more favorable for building the transport routes. India has a denser network of transport, so about 85% of passenger and 70% of freight traffic are carried out by roadways every year. So roadways are much more developed. Now freight and passenger transport can be facilitated due to the development of the railways. Railways are very important for the growth of an economy. So for us, it plays a very important role. Railway network is relatively less on the hill states, that is in the northeastern states, central parts of India and Rajasthan, while it is much more denser in the northern plains. Railways are very important for a vast country where distances are very large. Next is the waterways. Waterways is very cheap mean of transport. It contributes around 1% to the country's transportation. It comprises of rivers, canals, backwaters, creeks, etc. Now approximately 95% of India's foreign trade moves through ocean routes, that is waterways. So apart from the international trade, it is also used for the purpose of transportation between islands and the rest of the country. As compared to Brazil, airway in India is more developed and the use of internal airways is also increasing. Now let us come to communication in Brazil. Now there is another map given here for Brazil, which is showing us the Brazilian Standard Time. Now you will find in this map, because of the very vast longitudinal extent of Brazil, the difference between two extreme points. Okay, that is the two extreme points in the west and the east. That is Nascente de Rio Moa, which is in the west, and towards the east, if you see Ponto de Sexais. So there is a vast, difference between these 2 points. So what is the time difference between these 2 points? It is around 168 minutes. That is 2 hours and 48 minutes. So there are different time zones in Brazil. So that is why Brazil has 4 time zones. It is behind the Greenwich Mean Time by 2, 3, 4 and 5 hours, which you can rightly see on the map. There are 4 divisions. So the red line which is there in the middle of the map, it shows us the GMT minus 3 time zone, which is considered as an official Brazilian time. So it is known the 03 GMT minus 03 is the official Brazilian time, which is also known as BRT. It is 3 hours behind Greenwich Mean Time. Now children, telecommunication services in Brazil are well developed and they are very efficient as well. The industry includes landlines as well. There are mobile services, television broadcasting, radio broadcasting, computer, etc. Around more than 45% of the Brazilian population has access to internet. Telecommunication infrastructure is fairly modern in the country. Over the recent years, mobile telephones have led to rapid expansion of telecommunications in Brazil. The nature of Brazilian territory, especially land mass size and the large pockets of unpopulated and densely vegetated areas, create significant obstruction to the expansion of the coverage of telecommunication service. So because of the large forests that are there in Brazil, it creates an obstacle for communication in Brazil. But still, Brazil is developing its technology to send domestically made satellites to space. So it is trying hard in the aerospace region as well. Now let's learn more about the communication in India. So India too is not far behind. If you go to see the longitudinal extent, we have a large longitudinal extent. The difference between the two extreme points, okay, as we saw in Brazil, the east and the west, India has also has some time difference between the eastern and the western part. So the time difference between the western and the eastern part is 2 hours, which is 120 minutes. But India has only one standard time. We do not have two. We only have one time zone. Okay. So in this map, when you see the 82.5 degree east longitude is the main standard time, that is Indian Standard Time IST. So we follow this time. It passes through Allahabad. It is ahead, okay, it is ahead in time of GMT. So what is the time difference between GMT and IST? It is around 5 hours 30 minutes plus we are ahead of GMT. Now with the explosion of electronic media, telecom industry has become one of the fast growing sectors. In this era of information and communication, more digitally enhanced communication devices like mobile phones, internet and satellites are paving a way to the expansion of wider reach of communication. India is one of the largest users of smartphones and internet, with development in our own satellites. Similar to Brazil, we also have developments in satellites. India has come a long way in this field of communication. So with this, we conclude with this lesson. Thank you.